Hello and welcome to Pick Up the Mic, Harvest Church's original podcast. My name is Mike Greiner, lead pastor at Harvest Church. With me, my somewhat sickly but still faithful sidekick, Will Land, the executive pastor of Harvest. It is the Christmas season as we're recording. I don't know exactly when you're seeing this because Christmas is getting close. But I have to know, I want you guys to know that Will Land was rebuked in this building for saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas.
Yes, I was.
What do you guys think of that? That's pretty bad, right, Sunshine?
That is horrible.
That I said Happy Holidays?
No, that somebody rebuked you for
Well,
it.
rebuke is a harsh word.
I think you should. Apparently, he's afraid of using the name of Christ. Put Christ back in Christmas.
That was basically the comment. And then my rebuttal was holiday comes from holy day.
From holy day.
It's still a holy day.
So I got a card from Volvo. I drive a Volvo, but the last place I would take my Volvo to get fixed is a Volvo dealer. Unless there was no other way out. They're very friendly at the Volvo dealer.
Because they charge you lots of money.
But they're not that good. In fact, I have to say, and I'm not going to say which dealership because I don't want anyone to sue me, but
That's because you got Western PA guys reading only Scandinavian manuals.
That's whatever
That's
it
probably
is.
it.
I brought them a car once. They told me it was fixed. I gave it back. It wasn't fixed. I brought it back to them. And then they said, well, we'll have to charge you another $500 to figure out what it is to get it fixed. And I said, at that point, I said, just give me the thing back. You guys obviously don't know what you're doing. And then they keep a record of all your texts. And they send it back to you. And they said, well, we really want to satisfy and all this stuff. When it was done, I was out $1,600, and it was just an electronic thing that they never fixed correctly. And then I called him to say he didn't fix it correctly, and I was going to take it back. And then the guy says, well, of course, we're going to have to do a test drive on it. Whether you want it to show. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm never going back to you guys. So I got a guy here, Country Road Auto.
Yes.
My boy Sean, I said, and he's fixed timing chains on those things. He's fixed things. Thank God for Sean Freeman at Country Road Auto. I just gave a plug for free. He fixes
He really
my
is
Volvo.
the best.
Nevertheless,
He is our new guy, too.
he is good. Nevertheless, the Volvo dealer still sends me things as if they think I'm going to drive over there, which I'm not. And this card, so they send me a Christmas card, right? I open it up, and it said something like, it didn't have the word holidays, and it didn't have season's greetings, and it didn't have Merry Christmas. It had a car, and it said something like, I don't even remember if it had the word happy. Something about the season.
It's winter.
Something about the season and thankfulness. And it came as a Christmas card. And I'm thinking, this makes you look so wimpy. It makes you look so wimpy. You know, Volvos are Scandinavian. Scandinavians used to have manly Vikings.
Yeah.
Now apparently
they all turned Christian at one point,
Volvo
too.
apparently is run by sissy men. And
I don't know if most people know that. The Vikings all got converted through their pillaging.
Yeah.
And that's why all those Scandinavian countries' flags have crosses on them.
That's right. They all became Christians. And they were still tough for a while, but now they're no longer tough. They're kind of wimpy people, and in fact, now Volvo is owned by the Chinese 100%.
Sad.
Now, the one I drive, the Chinese didn't own it, but
I'm gonna parlay this into
Christmas,
one of your favorite topics, AI.
AI.
We just started getting, the family Christmas cards from everybody. The beautiful picture of the whole family on the front, on the back, a few blurbs with pictures of the kids,
Yeah.
like the postcard things.
Yeah.
So we've gotten 3 of them already this week. They all, it's like eerily sound the same.
Sound or oh, you got video ones?
No, the words, like when you read them.
Oh.
Corey's like, my wife's like, look at this. She's holding up 2 side by side, and they just picked some very odd phrases. It was like, stay warm and cheery, and it was like a sentence structure with words
with holiday words.
With holiday words, and they were almost identical. And she's like, isn't this odd? I said, babe, guarantee you they both used AI. I said, they're all going to sound the same because everybody's going to use it. She's like, you really think they used AI? I was like, read them side by side. Like the side by side paragraphs were identical in construction,
Merry,
adjective
jolly,
selection.
happy cheers to you, eggnog.
Yeah,
You're like,
it was like, it was just very obvious that. So it's interesting. And then
Do you send out Christmas cards?
I don't know if we ever have.
Do you send out Christmas
Not
cards?
to my knowledge.
Sunshine, now that you're newlywed? You know, we used to regularly do it until I became a pastor. And
What made you stop as a pastor, or is that just coincidental?
no, as a new pastor, I realized if you forget someone, you are the worst pastor ever. And then,
I don't care enough about any of you to do it at all.
well, I
So-
do. I like sending Christmas cards. I liked writing a little note with what my family's been up to and that sort of thing. I actually like sending them, and we like getting them. We hang them on the wall. So we're Christmas card people. But could you imagine if I sent a Christmas... First, now the church, I couldn't afford the postage to send them because I couldn't leave anybody out.
Yeah.
But I would
Well,
leave someone
stamps
out.
are like 82 cents a piece now.
Yeah, and so if I'm sending them to everybody on our mailing list, well,
You're $800.
then you have to buy the card, and then you have to lick it and shut it. My tongue would fall off. But then I would inevitably leave out people who aren't on the mailing list, and they'd be like, "Pastor, thank you for the card." Another, I didn't get a card, so I don't send them out, and but I love getting them.
So
I feel like I'm ripping folks off.
my mom was a big Christmas card. We were a
hang
Christmas
them
card.
on the wall so you can look at them all.
Yeah, so my parents have a very large hearth, fireplace, brick fireplace. It's probably 15 feet wide, big fireplace in the middle, and it's got a mantle, like a wooden.
All right.
And she would always tape them on a diagonal and fill up the whole mantle. We'd get 30, 40 Christmas cards, and then that's where they all every year by the
Didn't
Christmas.
you enjoy looking at them ever? You didn't care.
I didn't care. I think the women folk found it.
I think my wife
Nice.
likes it a lot, but I actually liked it, especially people send letters these days. Not everyone. So we'd set the letters aside, and you can read them, put them in a basket.
We get a couple letters. My
Read 'em.
sister's aunt writes a letter.
I hate
a
to say it.
coworker of her writes a letter.
Sometimes I'd put them in the reading room.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
And but you get to catch up with folks. So in any case, but we want to talk about something else to do with Christmas. At least I do, because we talked recently about Christmas on our podcast about what it was like in Bethlehem, and that led me to see something that happened yesterday in the media that is now.
Couple weeks old.
Yeah, and it's a cop talking about ICE,
A police officer.
immigration, what?
Customs enforcement
coming into Minnesota, and I'll let him speak for himself, and then we can. You haven't seen this. You can react to it. Go ahead and play this, if you will, Sunshine.
It's especially personal to me, having been raised a Catholic, to be in a Christian church this morning as we are approaching Christmas. And I cannot help but think of what is happening in our city today and how that echoes with how outsiders have been treated for thousands of years, how Mary and Joseph themselves were considered outsiders and forced to stay in a barn. That's what we're getting ready to commemorate as Christians around the world, while all of this fear is happening right here in our town.
What do you think of that?
Just pure foolishness.
Well, first, to give him his credit, he believes the story that they were forced to stay in a barn.
Yeah, poor guy.
Because that's the one that's always told.
And yeah, he's just uneducated and just displaying
But
his
who
ignorance.
isn't?
Oh, I'm totally product of what you've been taught, right? And this is where I think I would use the word ignorant in the positive sense. Ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid or
No, it means you don't know.
It means you don't know. You do not have the information, which is sometimes can be your fault, sometimes not.
My wife was just telling me recently, when I first discovered what the Bible said about the Christmas story. And the first separation is that there's two events. There's the Magi event as well as the birth event. They're not the same. And then the second is there is no hotel. Therefore, he's born into a home.
It wasn't rejected.
So it takes out the rejection theme and it adds the family theme. My wife, for a couple of years, was not liking that. I was a new pastor, and she says, "Why do you have to say that?" And I said, "Well, I study it, and every time I look at it, I see it, and it's true. Prove me wrong. It's got to be true." So then she would tell you today that what happened is all of a sudden it hit her when she was listening to me talk about this, that the truth is what matters, not maintaining our stories. And so this guy here has this story that Jesus and Mary were forced into a barn. And okay, he wasn't, which we talked about last time. I want to talk a little bit more about that today. But let's go to the ice part, because I really will enjoy talking about the fact that you have a Minneapolis police captain, whatever he's the head, chief, whatever they call him. And he had those stars.
Stars and bars.
And he is saying that Somali illegal immigrants
who broke the law.
Well, let's talk about that. Immigrants, an illegal immigrant, people are saying it's not a crime. It is a crime to break a law. And entering into a country illegally is a law that you broke, so you're a criminal. Illegal immigrants are criminals by definition.
Yeah.
Now, you could say, well, Mike, when you break the law, you might park in a fire zone. Aren't you a criminal? Sure. And if I get caught, I'll pay the punishment for that, which will be a ticket. The punishment for being an illegal alien is getting kicked out, as it should be. That's why they made a law saying don't come in. That's the law. Don't come in. Don't park here. Sir, you're going to have to move your car, or I'm going to give you a ticket. Okay. Sir, do not live here. You're going to leave. And that is the crime. And now you have law enforcement people standing against law enforcement people?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
It's rebellion. It's seditious. I think we should send in the troops and arrest those cops if they get in the way of ICE. That's what I think. Federal troops, arrest them. They're breaking the law.
Well,
what is the
I'm going to disagree mostly on...
Or Minnesota State Troopers should go in there.
I would like that. Minnesota State Troopers, because I like the Confederation of the United States. I don't like the federal government having jurisdiction over state governments where they shouldn't. But yes.
It's a federal law, though. They're breaking federal law. If you're not going to assist them in getting these federal criminals out,
you can't interfere. And that's what Tom Holman is talking about. They are going to start arresting even police officers that interfere.
The federal government has a responsibility to the people of Pennsylvania to enforce the law in Minnesota.
That's true, particularly as it pertains to borders.
And if Governor Walz won't send the state police, which he won't,
well, they can bring federal charges against that guy if he interfered. And that's what they have promised to do.
He's giving you his spirit of the law. But in any case, because...
it doesn't even make sense if you believe the false nativity narrative, the comparison he's making. That's my issue with it.
I mean, even if Jesus was born in a barn, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Because he wasn't an illegal alien in the barn.
He was a Jew in Israel.
In a barn.
Coming to the capital of Israel.
Yeah.
And just because there wasn't space in the hotel.
Capital.
Well,
he's
coming to.
It wasn't the capital. Capital's Jerusalem. He was in Bethlehem, a little town outside.
I know, but aren't they coming to the festival?
No, they're coming for the census.
The census. That's right. I was thinking of
the Romans send them to their hometown, and apparently that's where his parents are from, I guess, or where he was born. And so if he was born in Bethlehem, he had to go back to Bethlehem.
So he's not even an immigrant.
No, he's in his hometown.
There is the rejection, if you would even call it rejection. I don't know. Do you view it as getting rejected if you go to a Motel 8 that says no vacancy and they say we don't have a vacancy, is that? I guess that's getting rejected, but it's not like xenophobia or being cast aside because of some ethnic identity you have. It's just saying I don't have any space.
In the story, the contractions are like 2 minutes apart. Joseph, get us a place.
Yeah, and so I don't know how you connect that to
You don't.
Somali nationals.
You don't. But if you're that's a good point. So there's almost an unethical appeal. People sitting there going, "Yeah, it's just like Jesus."
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you have
it just doesn't make sense.
Ahmad al Halal gonna blow you up. Halal is not Jesus. He's a Muslim dude who snuck in. Anyway, but I do want to show you guys, because we talked about Jesus there was no inn in Bethlehem. That there's no evidence of an inn. It's too small for an inn. The word inn is guest room. So Jesus was born into a home. In fact, we talk about where the sign says he was laid in a manger. Jesus did not have to be born in the room where the baby is laid down, because that's where they go to bed. No doubt Mary was in wherever the family thought it convenient for her to give birth, but then the baby was laid in a nice clean manger that they cleaned out and put him in nice cloths. Okay.
Like you would any baby.
So but there is a tradition. If you were to go to the Holy Land,
Israel,
there is in Bethlehem a Church of the Nativity. It's a church on top of, well, I'm actually going to show you. Could you start this video and be ready to stop it? If you started at that, is that the 142 one? I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we get the word nativity? Do you know the etymology of that?
No, I know. I never looked it up.
That sounds like native. Does that have to
means-
do with birth?
It means birth.
So of the birthity.
It should
the
be
birth.
called. It should start at 142. Go ahead. So
Caves were often used as a place to keep animals and
okay,
are
stop
commonly
it
found
right there
near
and leave the
ancient
picture
houses.
on the screen, please. So what you see there is an ancient home. And this particular home, you can see all the living space. It looks like it's about 20 by 20 by 20 by 20 or 25 by 25. It's not that big.
Yeah.
It may have had a roof, and the roof would be flat. And if you had a guest room, your guest room was normally going to be on top of that as another smaller room. And you could take steps.
Portico on the roof.
Or it could be a loft situation. But it's harder to know that because they would have been made of wood, and the wood would have faded away by now. But that would be where you'd have an upper room. But most of them, there are ones that aren't from this age that have the room on top. Those other rooms on the left, it's hard to know what they are. They could have been animal areas where you bring an animal at night. And if so, you could have a manger in there. And you could see why, if there's no room in the guest room because the house is filled with family from out of town and they're all sleeping in there, you might want to put a baby in that guest room.
Yeah, new mom and new baby. It's going to be awake,
Yes.
crying,
So that's
feeding.
that's right. That's an actual house from that time period in that area. Now, this happens to have, they butted it up against a hillside to create a cave, because the ground there, they don't get a lot of water, and it's very stony. So you many times you could create a cave, dig out a little cave, and then you could also use that as part of your home, and it was often thought to be used for animals. So in Origen, who's a guy, around 185 or so, said that Jesus was born in a cave. Do we know Jesus was born in a cave? No. But he could have, we don't know where he was born. He could have been laid in a cave, though, because that also could be an animal area, is a cave. So go ahead and hit play. Let's watch a little more of this.
When the time came for Mary to give birth, the Gospel of Luke says there was no space left in the guest room in the house. And so
Now,
the
they're
text
saying that's the
implies
guest room, but
that
it might
Jesus
not
was
have
born
been.
among animals.
That could have been
since
your animal
afterwards,
space.
he was laid in a manger used for watering and feeding animals. Therefore, the details in Luke's Gospel fit well with the early tradition that Jesus was born in a cave.
Okay,
So we
stop
know this
1
much for
second.
certain. The cave
Again, the Bible doesn't say born in a manger. It says laid in a manger. So why people assume they know where the baby was born? It's just an assumption. And almost 200 years later, someone says, well, he was born in a cave. Like that guy knows. Anyway, go on.
Well, like Sunshine said last time we talked about this, the natural thing to do is make all the men leave the house.
Yeah.
Get out of here. The women are in there helping with the birthing process. You do it in the most comfortable, convenient place to have a birthing process. You'd make everybody else leave.
And they've done it before.
They've
'cause
done
they
it
don't have
plenty of
hospitals.
times before. And then, okay, birth is done. Everything's cleaned up. And now it's like, okay, where's the new family going to sleep?
One of the things to consider is that historically, the first known hospital, if I'm not wrong, and I could be wrong, we can check it now, was started by a guy named Boniface,
Yeah.
who was a Christian.
Germ.
I'm going to look it up after.
This is like a monastery thing.
The point is, there were no hospitals.
Yeah.
You were born in your house. And so they've done it before, and they're going to do it again. For all you know, it's the same house Joseph was born in, because he went back to his hometown.
Right.
All right. So, but what I like about this guy is he's going to show us a bit of the Holy Land and where people today say the birth place of Jesus is. I just want to go on record in saying no one knows. But when tourism is on the line, go ahead.
Yeah. But this fills in your imagination, though. I mean,
does.
at least for what it
Could have been.
would have looked like or could have looked like, at least stylistically
Exactly
or
right.
emblematically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now this cave has a much bigger opening. Go back and show that house again, if you don't mind, just so that people see it. It's only on for a second, but they're saying that those are guest rooms. They could have been, but I've seen, and I'm no expert, and I'm not saying the guys who made this video are an expert, but I've seen a lot of pictures that others have put, and often the rooms like that, they say, are animal rooms. This one happens to be up against a cave, so they would say the cave is for animals. I would say, though, how do the animals get in there? You're walking them right through your living space.
Yeah.
Where those other things have doors, if they have doors, you can get in them from the outside. And I don't know why you'd use that for a guest room and then walk your animals through the living space. They don't really know, they're guessing. But a cave could be very useful. You could store your roots in there and other things. It's space. And in a place where you don't have much space. But in this case, notice it looks nothing like the cave the guy is standing in. That guy is standing in an actual cave. It's not a house. But then the very next one, they're showing you a trough, and I don't know if that looks too big to be inside of a house. It looks like an outside trough, but nevertheless, you still get the feeling of a stone place you might put food. So go ahead and hit play again. Thank you, Sunshine.
implies that Jesus was born among animals, since afterwards he was laid in a manger used for watering and feeding animals. Therefore, the details in Luke's Gospel fit well with the early tradition that Jesus was born in a cave. So we know this much for certain. The cave, which would be a lot like this cave that Justin Martyr and Origen wrote about, is the same cave
150 years
that then later in about 326 AD, Emperor Constantine builds a church over the top of to
Okay,
commemorate
stop right
this
there,
cave
please.
as the
How much longer before a church was built over it?
We say 325.
326, which means 300 years later, a Roman emperor, once the Romans decided that Christianity was the religion of the emperor who doesn't live there, he probably lives in, where did he live in? Constantine would have lived in Constantinople.
Yeah, Turkey.
And so, not Rome. And he had to go back to the Holy Land and find a cave. So how do we know this is the cave Jesus was born in? Could have been.
Well, it'd be like right now. And we have way better records because paper's better, people wrote more. It'd be like jumping back to 1725,
Yeah.
trying to pick the house of.
Especially without records, and especially knowing that the Romans had crushed Jerusalem, which is only several miles away, maybe 5 to 10 miles away. So what I'm saying is,
It's a stretch.
I don't think there's any historical reliability that where they built this church is where Jesus was laid or was born, but it's the right area of the world, so
And at least,
we can all pretend it is. Anyway, hit it.
well, it's cool that you get to see what the house and cave situation could have looked
Now,
like.
this is really cheap computer stuff because you're going to see why. This first church was torn down, then they're going to show you the real church. So go ahead and hit it. Or the one that's there now.
Emperor Constantine builds a church over the top of to commemorate this cave as the birthplace of Jesus. Now, this church stands for a long time, but eventually it's destroyed. And then just after 530 AD, Emperor Justinian rebuilds this church. And with many repairs and restorations, this is the church that has still stood until today, some
If you could stop it
1,500
there
years
so we can get a
later.
nice look at that.
It's a pretty beautiful building.
Yeah, so this would be about 100 years after the Roman Empire fell. There's still an emperor, I don't know, Justinian, but he's not of the whole world. Notice it's in the shape of a cross. And if you can see the top of the cross, the short bit of the cross, what they're saying is, and if you go to Jerusalem today or Bethlehem today, what they're saying is that very top area above the cross is the little cave that Jesus was in. Now, no one knows for sure if that's so, but it's kind of cool. So let's hit it and let it play a little more.
Currently, archaeologists are digging in Bethlehem next to the Church of Nativity.
This is the southwest corner of the Church of Nativity. And here in front, this is where we're digging. We're sinking a trench down
Hey, UNC
to
Charlotte.
early levels.
Yeah.
It's my alma mater.
And we have,
He has a nice
without
southern
doubt,
accent.
pottery dating from the time of Jesus. What we've been able to prove
could have
up
studied
till
that.
now is the existence of a village from the time of Jesus. This is very important.
The earliest copy of Micah's Bethlehem prophecy was found preserved on a Dead Sea Scroll fragment in this cave and dates to 125 BC. Therefore, the fragment containing the prophecy of where the Messiah would be
Okay, we
born
can stop it.
is open.
As interesting as that is, now he's just going to say there was a prophecy born in Bethlehem. There is all kinds of archaeological digs in Israel. It's their favorite thing to do. They're everywhere. When I was there, the one time I was there with Fred, we saw one. Where was it? So one near the Galilee, and it's amazing how small a small town was then, a small village.
Yeah.
But 5 to 10 acres is where all the houses were in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
That's it, and they maybe had 300 to 500 people, and then they had fields around them.
It makes me think of like Red Town or Brownstown or like you said, Yellow Dog.
Yeah, just little towns.
Like
Everyone lived together, and there weren't just 1 to 2 people in a house. Obviously, there were families. They didn't stay in the house that much. You used the house to eat and sleep.
yeah, you had stuff to do. Sun came up, you had to go make
You had
food.
to work. That's right, and there was no place to hang out. Except on the roof. Okay, we have another video.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we're trying to get a feel for what it's like to live back here. This one, we're going to play from 248.
If you want to have confidence as a Christian too, not that this is really, it's not really my jam. I don't think it's your jam either. But if you're like a big history nerd, there is a lot of archaeological
Oh, yeah.
digs, and they've all really been confirmational of the Bible.
In fact,
Like,
exactly.
There's so much physical evidence has been unearthed over the years that confirms the stories in the Old Testament and New Testament. Like,
And the way you're saying that, Will, is correct. There was times when people said there was no David. He was a myth. And then they find some physical buildings from the time. They'll find his name carved on it.
yeah,
Oh, oops. There was no Daniel. And then all of a sudden they'll find something. And it always proves, it never disproves.
yes.
And so it is. Biblical archaeology is very interesting, especially if you're into archaeology. I'm more into history, so I like where archaeology crosses over. And okay, hit it. And this is just a quick overview. You can stop at any time you want, Will. And
we should all recognize that image.
Yeah, that is the Holy Land.
Since we all took, if you're listening and you went to Harvest, we all had the He Has a Plan class last year. You got the Sea of Galilee, Dead Sea at the bottom, Jordan River in between.
And the water on the left.
That's the Mediterranean Sea.
The Mediterranean Sea, that's the
And you
cradle.
got Joshua and the new generation of Israelites cross that river going right to left.
Yep. Cradle of civilization. Hit it. Hit it, girl. Turn him up. We can't hear
Our
this
journey
guy.
begins where it should, at Bethlehem with the birth of Jesus. It's an excellent place for us to
you
see
gotta scale the
how
wall.
history
Do you see how
layers
hot it
on
looks
one
there?
place
Yes.
on the
It is,
land.
especially in the
And a
summer.
very good place
He must be there
for
in
us
the winter.
to see how Old Testament
Even so,
stories
look how he's
influence
dressed.
our understanding of stories from the life of Jesus.
Nice hiking gear.
Before Jesus
It's
was
light.
born in Bethlehem, we have Bethlehem stories from the time of the judges, from the time of the kings, and from the time of the prophet Micah.
Bethlehem looks hilly. It's on a hill.
Yep, it's the hill country. Joseph,
If you
Jesus'
look below,
cousin
you're going
John
to
was
see
in the hill country. That's
the
all we
ruins
know.
of
And
three
he'd been
towers.
in the same area.
When a family planted its farm field, they wanted to be near it when it was harvest time. So when the crops were ripening, they would actually move their entire family out into the agricultural field away from the village
That's right.
to live in this sort of stone igloo. So there's a symbol of the agriculture that's so intimately connected to
and they would-
Bethlehem. Bethlehem in Hebrew means house of bread or bakery place.
Yep, Bethlehem. Lechem.
Bethlehem stories are always stories about how the Lord comes to help people in need. The first time we see that is at the time of the judges, in fact, the time of Ruth and Naomi. And these two ladies have come
I don't
to
know what this
Bethlehem
guy's
and
gonna
they
say.
have
I
a
didn't
huge
watch this part
problem
yet.
to solve. They are in difficult economic straits. Ruth is out gleaning in the agricultural fields, and it's there that the Lord provides a solution for this family in the form of a man by the name of Boaz.
Apparently, we're just going to watch him walk while he tells
Boaz,
Bible stories.
eventually forms a relationship with Ruth in those agricultural fields and on that
There you go.
threshing floor.
That
They're
looks more
married,
interesting to me.
and suddenly this family that was
Turn
in such
left, dude.
difficulty has a solution
Turn
that's
left.
provided by the Lord. The
Show me
second
that.
time we see this happening is actually during the days of Ruth and Boaz's great-grandson
Okay, come on,
David.
guy.
Saul
Show
is
us something
current
besides
king
you.
of
He
Israel,
must like his
and the
clothes.
people of Israel are
They definitely
suffering
look like they're
because he is
cools.
not the kind of king
Nice clothes.
that the Lord needed to
Ex
lead his
officios.
people. And so once again, all eyes turn to Bethlehem. The prophet Samuel goes to Bethlehem and anoints David as the ideal king that provided the best ruling experience that Israel ever had.
Okay, you can stop right there for a minute. So yeah, David was from Bethlehem, and the sheep, keeping sheep, was it sheep, wheat, grapes, figs, barley? I think that was what they lived on. So it wouldn't be bad if you had sheep. You had something to eat all the time, sheep or goats, and you could have a handful or you could have a lot. And the shepherds would often have, you could have you and your brother, if you had one, and another brother, and you could all live real close to each other, and your dad, and you have sheep, he has sheep, he has sheep. You could put them all in one field,
Yep.
and you kind of share that, and then you do your crops in other places, and the youngest cousins are stuck at the nighttime sheep watching, that sort of thing. And that's probably the sort of shepherds who would be around when Jesus was born. Go ahead and hit it.
It's no wonder then that when Matthew and Luke tell the story of Jesus' birth, they place the name of Bethlehem, or its equivalent, Town of David, into the story no less than 9 times. The story of Bethlehem that starts in the fields with Ruth and Boaz takes on new meaning in the fields when the angels deliver this incredibly powerful message: the King of Kings and Lord of Lords has come. But the very first words that they speak, in many respects, are the most important and most powerful of that entire Christmas day.
Do not be afraid.
Because when the angels came to the shepherds,
He said,
the very
"Don't be
first
afraid."
thing they said to them was, "Fear not,
Thank you.
We've heard that language before, only in a different way. The very first words that were spoken by Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden after their fall into sin were these: "We hid from you, Lord, because we were afraid." And I find it so striking and so powerful that in these fields of Bethlehem, the very first words that the angels speak to the shepherds are these: "The meaning of this night, you can stop being afraid, because Bethlehem has delivered the ultimate solution."
Okay, stop right there. Let's just talk about a second what he just said.
That was pretty good.
I'm going to repeat it. What he said was, as soon as Adam and Eve fell into sin and God walked in the garden,
They hid.
they hid. And why were you hiding? Because I was afraid. Okay, and then he just said the first words the angel said
To the shepherds on the night Jesus was born.
was, "Fear not." And he's connecting the two because the Savior is coming to take away their reason for fear, sin.
I like that.
That's
It's
adorable.
poetic.
It's adorable.
I feel a butt coming.
You're going to get a great big butt.
Oh, man. I could tell by your demeanor.
That is,
What's wrong with that guy? That's an awesome connection.
if you say it this way, that's an interesting way to say this. As long as you had this. But I am not even implying that has anything to do with why the angels said, "Fear not," because the Bible doesn't indicate that.
No, it's scary to see angels. We see that almost every time we see angels.
That's right.
You'd be freaked out when a big glowy guy
It's
with
what-
glory.
It's what they said to Hezekiah, or no, Brain.
One of them guys.
Zechariah, the guy, Elizabeth's husband, who had John the Baptist.
Yes.
It's what he said. Angels
Mary.
are always saying, "Don't be afraid" when they show up, because they're scary dudes.
Yeah.
So-
You're just not used to the glory that's coming out of their face.
So listen, folks, when people are teaching you the Bible, you have to hold them to account. Does the Bible really say that? That is really a cool insight. But it
That
is,
sounded like an Isaac thing. I liked it.
yes, but it's not. You can't say that the Bible says that the reason the angel said, "Fear not," was because the Savior was taking away the sin that made Adam and Eve.
Scared.
Yeah, that's just dumb.
Well, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not
You're
sure.
very nice.
I'm not sure he was trying to say that so strongly.
You
I think he's
poor little
just-
fella. Trust me, people teach the Bible like that, and people go, "Oh, what a great insight! I never saw that." Yeah, isn't he a great teacher? That was just not biblical. You can't. It wasn't unbiblical. It wasn't wrong, but you got to say, wouldn't that be cool if the angel said it for that reason? You can't say you know it. But anyway, let's let him keep going, because
That's good. That's just a good admonishment to us.
I really
warning
I
from
really
Pastor
want him
Mike.
to show us that place with a
That
hole
building.
in the ground. And I
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen I didn't see this video. I just knew where to start it. So, and I wanted him to I thought he was going to show us what Bethlehem was like. He's really just walking around in what looks like California. He's not in California, and he's not, and he's telling us stories. I wish he would show us. Maybe he's not even in Bethlehem, by the way.
He's not.
No, Bethlehem. There's a town there. There's a lot of tourism for Bethlehem now. It's much bigger than it used
So
to
he's
be.
just in a random
He's out. He's
archaeological site.
he's probably outside of Bethlehem, and who knows? Maybe it is ancient Bethlehem, and we got it all wrong. You can see by the stone out there that a road or something goes by, and maybe that's ancient. But so it could be the fields outside where the shepherds were watching their flocks. So it could be, but. Bethlehem is a city now where, look, there's
Where
money.
real people
There's
live.
money to be made in Bethlehem. All right, hit it. Let's see. I want to see that house. He's not going to show it to us, is he?
No.
But he sure likes to show off
There's
his.
like these drone shots walking around.
That's it?
Oh, there you go.
That's it.
Hey,
Okay. I want to apologize to everyone watching the show. I let you down. I thought that was going to be better than it was. It's called Bethlehem, Birthplace of Salvation. And I thought this will be good. This will be good.
we got an awesome Bible insight, though.
Yeah. I just crunched the other one.
So, I got asked to talk about a topic. Are we transitioning?
Wait, what was that question I said? I couldn't remember. I want to look it up.
I don't know. You said
Was
you
I
couldn't
right
remember.
about or wrong about something? that I assumed was right. Oh, when did Boniface? Did
the first
Boniface-
hospital.
What
The first hospital.
did? Yeah. What? Where is the first?
Well, while you look up that interesting fact, Doyd,
I'm going to interrupt you as soon as I find it. Go ahead.
I've been asked by several people. This comes up every year. I had a very concerned congregant last year wanting to know this question. My wife informs me that it's all over the social media again now. It seems to pop up every year. Can you participate in modern Christmas practices as a
Saint
Christian?
Basil, not Boniface. There were medical institutions or stuff in the Greeks that they did, but it was Basil, not Boniface. In modern day Turkey, in Cappadocia, modern day Turkey used to be a very Christian place until the Muslims came. You know what they did? Killed them all, because Muslims kill Christians. And then it said around 369 to 372. It says CE, but that for us means AD. So about 360 years after the very first place that was just for the sick, and it was done by a Christian, and his name was Basil of Caesarea. So Christians invented the hospital,
Yeah, and schools.
and now they've handed them over to the devils and the bureaucrats, and we're all punished by them.
All right, Mike, can you have a Christmas tree in your house and be a good Christian? That's where I was getting at in a very long-winded format. Apparently, that's the question of this time of year every year. Can you have a Christmas tree and be okay?
Well, why the question?
Because
I don't understand. Make me understand.
Because it's some old pagan artifact that you're bringing into your house to worship.
Who says it's pagan?
Well, apparently that's what everybody says.
Who's
In fact,
everybody? Let me look this
there
up.
are many, many internet trolls that will yell at you if you try to say it's okay to do as a Christian and that it's not pagan. There are people that attribute Christmas trees to all sorts of different pagan religions, Yule log and
Well, I know I've
whatever
heard
what Latvia
the
used to
Yule
be.
log. Let's see. The origin of the Christmas tree. Oh, this is hard. It had to work. There's a lot of people talking about this.
There's a lot of disagreement about it, and before we get into what's the real answer about the origin of the Christmas tree, because I think that that's actually somewhat irrelevant, my personal take is I don't think you're at risk.
Wait, you're answering the question already, huh?
Yeah, I don't think you're at risk at accidentally worshiping a god that you don't recognize and actively think you're worshiping. I mean, if I have a tree in my house and I'm telling everybody Jesus stories and celebrating the birth of Jesus, and like in my household, baking a birthday cake for Jesus and singing him happy birthday while having a Christmas tree.
How do you know the birthday cake isn't a pagan symbol?
That's like
How do you know lighting
Am I-
candles on your birthday isn't a pagan practice?
well, right. So I actually like our fellow pastor here, young Pastor Vince, I think has a great way to look at it. It's a very masculine way to look at it for a lot of these different holidays.
Wait a minute. Before you give the answers, let's create some problems.
I don't want more problems. I want just the easy slam dunk to answer, and
Well-
then give people a video to watch on their own.
We have polytheistic, animistic, agricultural. I'm trying to find I cannot find a ritual of the Christmas tree that I can trust that tells me.
There is some Yule log practice, which is not
Yes.
the Christmas tree.
I've heard of the Yule log.
It is not good religion, so I wouldn't do this. But there is some Eastern European pagan religion back in the day, animalistic religion, Northern Eastern Europe, where I think you had to like drag a log around your house several times to collect the bad spirits, and then everybody to like hit it with an axe
And then
to
set
get
it on fire.
and then set it on fire to essentially like burn up their bad juju.
Now what we do is we roast chestnuts on that.
Yeah, so don't, you know.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Okay, wait. No, I cannot find. Germanic tribes used evergreen bows, and branches in the winter solstice celebrations to symbolize life and renewal. However, there's no strong evidence of a full decorated indoor trees as part of the pagan religious rites.
Correct. In fact, the conclusion to this discussion for me is there's a great video out there by a guy named Wes Huff, who is a Christian fancy pants historian guy. And he has a great video that Sunshine's got a link in the show notes. It says, Christmas is not pagan. And then he goes through the actual literature review of where Christmas trees first start popping up as decorations, which is actually much newer than you would think. It's not super old. And that it came from Christianity. And he also even goes into the selected date of Christmas. People argue about that all the time.
Okay.
Didn't they just pick December 25th because it's actually a pagan date and they wanted to just tack on to the winter solstice? He actually shows that that is not an accurate description of how the history
unfolded. So there
unfolded.
is not a lot of pagan proof of a pagan
There's
Christmas
almost
tree.
none. There's almost no proof. In fact, he would argue that all the evidence points to it fruiting out of Christian practices.
Christians, okay, and then as for Jesus' birthday, we don't know when it was.
And he actually shows that he's not talking to the veracity, the truthfulness of December 25th being the right date, but at least the people that picked that date were doing their best to try to pick a correct date. They were not picking the date based off of a pagan winter solstice festival. Whether or not they did a good job of picking a good date, I don't think he speaks to. But he shows that the origin of the date was Christians genuinely trying to pick an accurate date. And so the bottom line is, going back to Pastor Vince, like we talked about Halloween a couple months ago.
Oh, wait, now Halloween too?
Well, I like this. Pastor Vince talks about it's what did he say? It's like this. It's like the trophies of the slayed religions of Christianity. Like Christianity washed over the known world through the centuries and just converted and converted and converted all of our ancestors. And so, like, even if the Christmas tree had a pagan origin, but you're no longer doing it with any reference or meaningful worship to a different god, right? It's just the trappings. It's the stuffed deer head of the old religion that Christ came and conquered. And so that's how he looks at it, which I think I like that view.
So some sort of, we've vanquished them.
That Christianity has vanquished all these old
We've taken
animalistic
your totem
religions.
pole and made it a Jesus totem
And we
pole.
made it a Jesus. And we're not worshiping anybody but Jesus. And I like bringing a pine tree in my house once a year because it smells good.
So all things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. It says Paul twice.
1 Corinthians.
He says it a couple times. And so all things are clean. You can eat meat sacrificed to idols, but you can also avoid eating meat sacrificed to idols. And we'll talk about this more later on our Q&A on another application.
Question. Yeah.
But who made the tree?
God.
It's God's tree. They were misusing the tree. I don't care if they were sacrificing their children to the tree. No one knows that. It doesn't mean that to anybody now. And now it's our tree anyhow. It was never their tree. It was never your tree to begin with.
Yeah.
It's God's tree. There's one of the greatest preachers in the book of Acts is a guy named Apollos. That's a foreign god.
Yes.
He didn't change his
He
name.
didn't change his name.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the names of foreign gods.
Yes.
And
Because
they-
that's not their original Jewish names.
That's right.
I can't even
Hananiah-
remember their first three names.
Hananiah,
All we know is Shadrach,
remember.
Meshach,
Yes.
and Abednego, but
Yeah.
that's their Babylonian names.
Yeah, hey, it's our tree. And when it comes to Easter bunnies, fertility rites, no one celebrates those.
That's Vince's point. It's like same with Halloween. It's like candy's good. God made things taste good. Be thankful to God that candy's awesome. Don't let your kids dress up in gross stuff.
Who
but
made
like just have
bunnies?
fun.
Who made bunnies? God made bunnies. Who made eggs? God made eggs. And that's why bunnies lay eggs.
Made of chocolate.
There's a related idea here. You know, a totem pole. If you found an old totem pole from the Indians, would you put it in your backyard?
Provided I wasn't worshiping it, and that's like the point. It's
Or
like,
would you burn it? So let's say it's a historical artifact, some tribe, and it's 400 years old, and somehow has been preserved. It may even begin to be petrified, and it's hard to even put a value on because it's a historical artifact. Would you put it in your backyard, or would you destroy it because it's an idol, like we destroyed the Buddha?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'd choose to put it in my backyard. I might think it's cool.
I'd put it in my backyard.
Yeah.
Because it's not an idol to me.
Right. That's the point. It's like you're not going to, having a Christmas tree doesn't mean you're accidentally worshiping. Like, are
Right.
you actually worshiping a God knowingly?
No,
Like,
and none of that religion's dead. If someone gave me a Buddha, I wouldn't put it in my yard.
because people think Buddha's a thing.
Yeah, because there is something called Buddhism, and they would mistake me for being a Buddhist, and I don't want that association on me. But not that I'm afraid of the actual statue.
It's just a statue.
And you can smash them.
You can smash him. This one is now headless
Our headless Buddha.
and armless.
Yeah.
It's a tough little statue.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough little statue. It's still,
Yeah,
it's
made of,
nowhere
like,
near as
ceramic or
impressive as it
something.
used to be. So there was a question. Somebody back in the 90s said you could go get if you're in a foreign country and you bring back a mask, right? And
yes,
then
my mom has one.
and then
A mask.
and then all of a sudden people in the house start to just have a hard time. And so the Christian missionary comes in and goes, well, that's because you brought that mask in. Yes, I got it when I was in Indonesia. That is a mask used in pagan worship. The demons came in on that mask. And your house is cursed until you get rid of that mask and cast and sanctify your house. Oh, okay. So they get rid of the mask, and all of a sudden the curse goes away. That's stupid. It's stupid. Demons don't inhabit masks. God looks on the heart, and an object. I mean, we got this thing. This could be an idol, right? We got this dragon. This is a dragon without wings. What a useless dragon you are! But he's kind of cool, and kids like to play with him when they're here. He's not. He hasn't got a spirit on him. He's just a piece of plastic. Now, if I start worshiping him, he's still a piece of plastic. The problem is in here.
Yeah. Very good.
The Bible, the Old Testament, the prophet says, you go out in the woods, you find a tree, you cut down the tree, and you carve it into an idol. Then you worship the idol you've carved.
And that's Jeremiah 10, I
Go
think.
ahead. Do you have it open?
Well,
there?
no, we could open it. I'm just telling you how serious people take this. So this video that I'm going to have Sunshine link, where an actual biblical historian, like, has a PhD in this stuff. Well, not this particular stuff, but is more scientific than you or I on history. People get really upset, Christians. So he was just showing some of the comments, like, on his video of people being mad. And one person says, a Christmas tree is an idol. You bring it sacrifices, hold hands around it, sing songs to it, and then bow down to it to get your presents. I've never seen a clearer example of pagan worship before. Jeremiah 10:3-4 clearly forbids you to have a Christmas tree. You can try your best to say it doesn't, but what else could it be talking about? You just want to, this is a different one. You just want to justify your sinful fleshly Christmas is pagan, and it comes from Babylonian pedophilia. It doesn't take a brain scientist to figure that one out. And then
Babylonian pedophilia.
there's other ones, like people saying that he's going to be held accountable for misleading people's souls. The celebration of Christmas in this way is rooted in Nimrod, and yeah, it just, people go off and off that they're worshiping the sun god. The actual reason is the one and only Messiah and his name being honored. And
So
they're serious, true believers, but they really get mad about the Christmas tree
let me
stuff.
shed some light. And I'm going to shed it by reading Romans 14, verse 1. Now accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of passing judgment on his opinions. One person has faith that he may eat all things, but he who is weak eats vegetables only. Agree with that one. The one who eats is not to regard with contempt the one who does not eat, and the one who does eat is not to judge the one who does not eat is not to judge the one who eats, for God accepted him. Who are you to judge the servant of another? To his own master he stands or falls, and he will stand, for the Lord is able to make him stand. For one person regards one day above another, another regards each day alike. Each person must be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it to the Lord. He who eats does so for the Lord. He who gives thanks to God. And he who eats not for the Lord he does not eat and gives thanks to God. For not one of us lives to himself, not one of them dies to himself. So Paul is making this statement based on whether or not it's okay to eat certain meats. And there could be a number of reasons why Christians wouldn't eat meats. One, they could be Jews who've converted and they can't get over it. They don't want to eat bacon.
They didn't like Peter's dream of
yes.
the animals becoming clean.
Or another place where Jesus said it's not what goes into the mouth that makes them unclean, but what goes because it passes through, and therefore says, I think it was Mark, he declares all foods clean right there. Or they could be people who are Christians who used to have food involved with their pagan festivals, and they don't want to do it. And he calls them, if he's saying you're free to eat all those meats, but if it bothers you to eat them, don't eat them. But he also said, but if your brother in Christ, it doesn't bother him, then don't judge him. Let him eat them. You just don't eat them. He calls it a weakness of faith. So if you don't think
Christmas trees are right,
don't have one. But you don't have to yell at Wes Huff because he does have one. And that's what the Bible would say to him. There's nothing wrong. God made the tree. God made the tree. You can have the tree. There's no prohibition for decorating with the tree. In fact, it's good for the economy and the earth because it's a constant tree farm happening and lots of oxygen coming into the earth and sucking up all that CO2, and someone's making a living off of it.
I buy mine every year from Fleming's Tree Farm on 210 outside of Shalocta, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah? Do you get a good price?
No, they're expensive, but I just love that family. Been going there for
Well, then I won't
30
talk you out
years
of it.
and-
But I buy mine from Bowser right above the courthouse in Katanning. And he
That's where we went this year.
always has great prices. Always
are they
has great
pre-cut?
trees.
Yeah, they are pre-cut.
Oh, we go drive out on the farm and pick it,
Well,
cut
we
it down.
used to do that, but this
$100
is much easier. $100 and you cut it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, it says here, where's the part? The issue is your conscience. The issue is your conscience. I'm looking for a quick verse instead of reading this whole chapter.
Well, the issue is also just, don't worship idols, but it's the
faith,
worship that
the
matters.
faith which you have as your own conviction before God. Happy is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. Your conscience matters. What if you think it's wrong to do it and you do it anyway? That's a conscience issue and one you need to watch out for. So, which leads to an interesting thought about the conscience. The conscience, when it tells you don't do something, is to be obeyed. But the conscience, if it tells you to do something, allows you to do something wrong, it's to be ignored. In other words, you can harden your conscience against sin. So your conscience is not your guide, your intellect is your guide. Your will, your intellect, and you take authority over your will, your decision making. But your conscience is a helper in that if it's bothering you, the Bible says don't do it. Don't do the thing that bothers your conscience. But that doesn't mean if your conscience isn't bothered, it's the right thing to do either. So go ahead and have your Christmas tree, your very merry whatever.
And that passage reference, if you want to review it on your own, is basically all of Romans 14.
15 and 16. It is huge. God, Jesus, Paul, somebody.
God, Jesus, Paul.
God, Jesus, Paul talks about this a lot. And yeah, and his bottom line is love one another. So there's that. Hey, I want to then, we need to do one more thing here.
What's that?
Rob Reiner died. And now Rob Reiner to you from your lifetime is who?
He's a couple different dads in a couple different movies of various levels.
Can you remember any?
He's the dad in Wolf of Wall Street. Not that that's a movie I want to talk about here.
One I can't watch. I started to watch it, and it turned into a
it's
porno,
terrible.
and I had to turn it off.
It's terrible. Came
You
out
cannot-
before I was
do
a
not
Christian.
watch that show.
Who else is he a dad of? I can't remember any others off the top of my head. He's normally like a dad in a movie for my generation.
Okay.
I would need to look up his movie list.
Well, and you could also look up what he did as a director.
Well, and I didn't even know which ones he directed.
Well, you will when you look at the list. Let's see. As a director, 30 movies. Let's see. What are they? Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap 2. The End Continues. Spinal Tap at Stonehenge. The final finale. Just the name. There's a ton here. I want to pick the ones you'll know. 8. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that. Though, was that the Alien movie where the kids filmed it on 8mm?
No. Oh no, that's a political movie. Ignore that one. I thought it was that too, but it's not. But he also did A Few Good Men. You seen that?
Yes.
You Can't Handle the Truth. He did Misery. He did, which was a Stephen King. He did When Harry Met Sally.
Yes.
He did The Princess Bride, one of my favorites. You like The Princess Bride?
I do. I didn't know he was a director.
And he did Stand By Me.
That's what I was thinking of. He's in Sleepless in Seattle with Tom Hanks.
So his dad is Carl Reiner. And Carl Reiner did a lot of comedies back in my mom's day. He became big. He was a comedian, and he became a movie maker too. And he produced a lot of TV shows, and he was in a lot of shows. So he was big on TV. He did the Dick Van Dyke Show. So he comes from a nice Jewish family, and he has quite the pedigree. Carl Reiner. I think Carl's still alive today. And so there's Carl and there's Rob. Let me see, what did Carl Reiner direct? Let's see if there's any you would know because they're older. The Jerk.
Oh, Stand By Me?
No, Carl, his dad.
Oh, his dad.
He did The Jerk with. Did you see The Jerk?
I have, I think, once.
Steve Martin, the Dick Van Dyke Show. Probably a lot of these you wouldn't know, but he's in a lot of things. He was a comedian, and but he died, and it's controversial politically because Trump put on Truth Social, something horrible happened. Somebody killed Rob Reiner and his wife. And then he said the guy had Trump derangement syndrome and he was nuts. He said, but may he rest in peace. So now it's endless people saying how horrible Trump is to say this. I would say Trump is Trump, and it was a horrible thing to say. I wouldn't say he's more horrible than he was before or after, and I wouldn't say he's more horrible than me. But it was a dumb thing to say. But on the other hand, Rob Reiner, when he was alive, said a lot of horrible things about anyone who voted for Trump, and he was famous on Twitter and then on X for just being really jerky politically, which was sad, but I gave him a lot of room. It didn't bother me as much because I liked his art, and I have found that.
Well, that's the way I think you almost have to be as a Christian with any acting or movie stuff. They're all crazy, just like we were talking about last episode. Just because they're good at acting doesn't mean you have to care about their opinions on anything else.
That's right. And now with some of them, it breaks through, and I cannot watch a person or listen to a person sing because their politics just, for some reason, I just can't do it.
It effuses out of their
Yes.
face. Like
Yes. And the modern De Niro.
Bruce Springsteen.
I still love Bruce. I love Bruce. I don't care if he's a lefty. But I don't really want to watch any more Meryl Streep, even though I used to like her. I don't want to watch any more the Pretty Woman lady, even though I used to like her. And I don't want to watch any modern De Niro.
But like Tom Cruise is batty and crazy.
Tom
and
Cruise,
I don't care. I like his
he
movies.
He makes good action movies. But Rob Reiner goes for generations. He started as an actor. Where he broke in was on the TV show All in the Family, which I found out you never heard of or saw. And Sunshine, you never heard of All in the Family either, have you?
Nope.
And it's again, it shows you how fast things change. When I was a kid, when All in the Family came on, it was a show by a guy named Norman Lear, who also produced a few movies. But Norman Lear broke into television with All in the Family and changed television. The censors who used to monitor broadcast TV, government
Standards
censors,
and Practices
yes,
Department.
You didn't allow much. I mean, this is why in the Dick Van Dyke Show, they slept in separate beds.
What's the Dick Van Dyke Show?
You don't know the Dick Van Dyke Show. Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore, both, in any case, they slept in separate beds. You couldn't show people in the same bed. Things were tight. But then in the 70s, when there's a lot of upheaval, this guy named Norman Lear comes along, and he makes a show about a family, a middle-aged family that lives in one of the boroughs of New York, and it's Edith and Archie Bunker, and Archie's the archetype of the white male, blue collar, somewhat racist,
backwards.
Yes, thinker, and Edith is the dolt of a submissive wife. She's friendly, funny, but dumb, and the foil is they have a kid. Sally Struthers is the little girl, their daughter, and she ends up marrying a hippie who he calls Meathead. In fact, that's still who he is to me. I can't remember his name as a character. So Rob Reiner is Meathead. And that's who he became. And that's who he was throughout the 70s and 80s. People would say, hey, did you see this movie Spinal Tap? Yeah. Meathead made it. Really? They didn't even know who he was. He was Meathead. So I just want to, for the old timers, to remind them of life in the past. For you youngsters, to show you the first time America really got a glimpse of Rob Reiner, and who's now dead. And I'm not excited that he's dead. I wish he wasn't dead. Wish he hadn't been murdered, but he's dead. Go ahead.
Got murdered. Didn't just like die of
natural causes. Yeah, he got murdered by his own kid.
Murdered by his kid.
All right, let's see a little Rob Reiner here, because I liked him.
So that's Rob Reiner there in the tie-dye.
That's Rob Reiner with a beard and a long hair.
Where's your tie?
Well, I tried, Gloria, but it doesn't look good with an empty neck.
Hey, look, Edith, he wore his Halloween costume. Tie on me, get rid of this thing here.
Come on over here and meet my parents. Mom, Daddy, this is Michael Stivic. Michael, this is my mother, Mrs. Bunker.
Hi, how are you?
How do you do? And my father, Mr. Bunker. Daddy, this is Michael Stivic. Michael.
All right, Gloria, we done that. think we all know who everybody is now.
I knew everybody before. Except Mr. Stivic.
So, you're Mr. Bunker.
You figured that out, huh?
Michael, shake his hand hard. Daddy likes that.
You shake his hand.
No, I don't want to.
Be nice. Go ahead. Go.
All right, put it there. What kind of an animal is she bringing in here?
He has a lot of character. Why don't you two sit down and get better acquainted while Gloria and me finish preparing the dinner?
There's some nice tie your guest is wearing there.
Come on, Gloria.
Uh-oh, he's in his chair. Their chair faces the television. That's why it's next.
Hey, how would you like to try this here chair? Because that one's mine.
By the way, those two chairs are in the Smithsonian Institute. They are, just like that, with the end table.
That's cool.
Piece of history.
What kind of a name is Stivic?
He wants to know if he's a Polak.
Where you from?
Oh, Chicago.
I mean, what's your nationality?
I'm an American.
I mean, where are your people from?
They're from Poland.
Back in the 70s, Polak jokes were everywhere. If you were Polish, you were dumb.
That would make you Polish then.
Yeah. Anything interesting in the paper?
Yeah, 200 arrested at Vietnam Day peace demonstration. 200. They should have thrown a whole bunch of them in the can. Look at that picture there. Here they are, throwing all kinds of junk and debris at officers of the law. Desecrating on the American flag. What the hell are them peaceniks want anyhow?
Well, I think they just don't like the idea of America fighting an illegal and immoral war.
Uh-oh.
Well, if they don't like it, they can lump it. Take it down the road and dump it.
What are you saying America love it or leave it?
That's right. It's a free country, so am's great.
Well, that would include me too, Mr. Bunker.
Then toodly you to you too.
Well, what would our leaving solve? I mean, with or without protesters, this country would still have the same problems.
What problems?
Well, it's the war, the racial problem, the economic problem, the pollution problem.
Oh, come on, if you want to nitpick.
Nitpick? Let me tell you something, Mr. Bunker.
No, let me tell you something, Mr. Stivic. You are a meathead.
What did you call me?
A meathead, dead from the neck up. Meathead.
So that became his name, and he became his son-in-law in the show. But Bunker is he is a character made by Norman Lear to make the right-wing political people look stupid.
Yeah.
You're supposed to like Michael Stivic, not Archie Bunker.
Yeah, we discussed off air for my generation, which maybe is, I don't even know if Sunshine watched this show, but it's like the Stephen Colbert Report, the Colbert Report. Like Stephen Colbert is now on late night TV, and he's not satirical anymore like that. But he was supposed to be a conservative news commentator, and he was clearly stupid, and that was the joke. Right,
and with Bunker, look, he was against the beatniks, or the guys protesting the Vietnam War. I'd be against them too. They were a bunch of Marxists. There was no different than Black Lives Matter.
I was just going to say,
they were stirred up to protest, and just like today, they were agitated by and they weren't the majority. But what Lear did was he used that show to normalize leftist thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hilarious. I still love the show. You can't help but love it. And the thing was, as the show went on, without question, America fell in love with Archie and Edith Bunker. Fell in love with. You watch that guy every week, and he says things you couldn't have said in the 90s, 2000s. He uses the word fag on there and stuff like that. And colored people. And from that, a couple of the shows would come out, Maude and the Jeffersons. But not only did Bunker become, let's say, more popular, people just liked him and loved him. The Meathead just became a staple. He became a staple of American life. And then, boom, next thing you know, you go watch a movie called Princess Bride and you laugh and you find out Meathead made the movie. He was a very talented guy, but he was as leftist as that character.
Yeah.
In real life. As leftist, if not more leftist. Probably the guy playing
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker was a bit to the left, too, because he's Hollywood. His name's Carroll O'Connor. He was in a movie with Sidney Poitier called The Heat of the Night, really good, where he played the sheriff, and Sidney Poitier was the black dude coming to the southern town, and really good. He's a very good actor. Edith was one of the Stapleton sisters. She was not adult and stupid, but she sure played one really well. Sally Struthers never really had much of a career after this, except she would come on and cry for poor people, and she became charactered. If you were watching a show at night, a TV show, and they'd have those commercials, like they do for dogs, and here comes Sally Struthers crying all over the place because someone was starving in Africa, and Sally would be there for them. Then there became a show in the 80s, which was that made Michael J. Fox into a household name. Was it Growing Pains or something like that?
Something like that.
Now, he played a Reaganite. He was
black guy who is a Reagan guy.
No, Michael J. Fox is.
Oh, Michael J. Fox
is white.
Thinking of a different.
He's white. He was Marty in Back to the Future.
Who was I thinking of? Sunshine.
You were thinking of maybe Michael. That Michael? That Jordan guy or whatever his name is. Yes. He played Creed. No. So
no, not him.
So Michael J. Fox played a teenager who liked to be on the market. But his whole family was all these nice folks, and they were all liberals. And they tried to make Michael J. Fox the upstart, rebellious kid.
Family ties.
And they tried to make him the upstart, rebellious kid because he wasn't into all the cool leftist moral things. He was a Reaganite. He was into the stock market even in high school. Funny thing is, he became the most popular character in the show. Kind of like Archie Bunker. People like that guy. They like the conservatives when they show up on the show. And I guess for your generation or when you were a kid, Tim the Tool Man. Yeah, he was a conservative figure.
He was actually conservative in real life. I was thinking of Jamie Foxx, the black guy.
Jamie Foxx is definitely black.
See, in my mind, Michael J. Fox is from The President Show.
I don't know what that means.
Michael J. Fox, where they're speechwriters for the...
I don't know, but I do know this. If you put Jamie Foxx and Michael J. Fox in a room, one of them is black and one of them is white. And I think on that note, we need to end this podcast. Because I think it's run its course. When we're now starting to talk about the skin color of Michael
TV
J. Fox,
shows.
I think we've completely lost it. But I do want to say bye, Carl Reiner. Sorry you're dead. You're already forgotten because younger generations don't know who the heck you are. I wish our rhetoric wasn't so negative that even when someone dies, he's cursed by the president. But on the other hand, if there was ever a guy who had it coming, it was Rob Reiner, if you want to be honest about it. I think he said awful things about Rush Limbaugh when Rush Limbaugh died. Because, I don't know why, because people aren't nice. Look, when people die, give them a break. They're dead now. Say something nice. If somebody dies, say something nice.
Well, also raise your kids right, you know? You don't want your kids to stab you later in life.
Try to raise kids who are non-stabbers.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm pretty sure Reiner made a movie about his son because his son was in and out of rehab. And I guess he thought he was through it, but I guess he wasn't through it. And so his son stabbed. Yeah, so we're urging everyone out there not to be stabbers. If you have knives, don't use them on people. And with that, I think we're really done this time, okay?
Amen.
Say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.